What's up, Duval? It's your favorite Jaguar, Bucky Brooks, and this is Believe in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to all things Jacksonville Jaguars. We are excited about our team coming back from London, had a big win against the New England Patriots, and they take on the Green Bay Packers this weekend on Sunday in the bank. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down, and we're going to talk about why this is a measuring stick game for this team and why it's really, really important and what we can take coming out of this game that can really let us know how our Jags will do going into the rest of the season. But before we get there, let's pay off our sponsor, Bet Online. Basketball fans, it's that time of year. The NBA is back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, Bet Online has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, live in-game betting on all of your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. Bet Online has every stat, matchup breakdown, live odds to bet on during games. And it's not just NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL to political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. And since we're talking about the game starting here, like this is one of those times of year where the game really begins to get fun because we're now beginning to separate the contenders from the pretenders. The league is now kind of settling in. You know your team entering week 8. You kind of know exactly where you are. You're right at almost the midway point. And so this is when everyone kind of begins to know their team, know what they need to do as a team. Either we're good enough to compete in the playoffs or we need to start selling off some assets and just beginning to think about next year and future years and those things. The reason why I say this game, week 8 against the Green Bay Packers, is a measuring stick game is because this is the best team that the Jaguars have faced this season. Packers entered the game 5-2. They are a very good team. They have a talented roster, homegrown roster, because they believe in a draft and develop model. Most of their players were drafted in Green Bay, developed by this current coaching staff, and they were resigned or they continue to be around the team because they are part of the system. They know exactly what to do. They know how to do it. They bought into the culture of the franchise and Matt LaFleur. And this is one where they will kind of show us our cracks and flaws and any of the things that may be wrong with the team. But it also will give us an opportunity to see how we compete with some of the elites in the league. When I look at the Packers, giving you a quick overview, I talked about it being a very good team, a very solid roster, no glaring weaknesses with this team. A lot of young, homegrown players, guys that have been developed, guys that have been thrust into prominent roles, but they've taken a very patient approach with the way that they develop their young players. It is typical of the way that you build a team when you're in a small market. You have to really commit more time and more energy and effort to the draft and develop process because it's hard to lure and attract free agents to a city like Green Bay. Having spent 3 years in Green Bay as a player before and after I played in Jacksonville, really know the culture of the franchise, the culture of the team, and how they build the team well. And I would say it's very similar to the way the Jaguars have to be constructed, just in terms of being a small market team, how you want to have that homegrown feel to it. When I look at the Green Bay Packers on defense in particular, man, you really see how they've committed their draft capital to that side of the ball. I think they're like 8 first-round picks that are playing within their 2 deep. They really believe in investing on defense and investing on top players early, and it's paid off for them. New defensive coordinator Jeff Hadley has come over, left his head coaching job at Boston College, took the D coordinator job with the Packers. And he talked to them early about we're going to lead the league in 2 things: effort and turnovers. I can't tell you whether they're playing harder than anybody else in the league. I can tell you that they are number 1 in takeaways right now through 7 weeks of the season. 17 takeaways. They do a great job of taking the ball away. They do it by keeping eyes on the quarterback. They want to play zone, keep the ball in front, but they want to really challenge the quarterback's discipline and patience and awareness by bringing a lot of zone blitz pressures from everywhere, meaning they're going to bring 5 or more rushers, but they're going to play zone behind it instead of man-to-man behind it. And the principle and theory of that is more eyes on the quarterback. The quarterback is going to tell you where the ball is going. You can have quicker reaction. You're going to get your hands on more balls because you see it come out of the quarterback's hands. and you're going to get interceptions off tips and overthrows. That's how zone defenses work. But Halfley is even taking it to the next level because they are a team that uses some hot zones, or what they call eyes coverage, where they're bringing 6 defenders like it's a max pressure. They're playing zone behind it, so they're keeping their eyes on the quarterback. And if your quarterback isn't savvy, if he isn't one that can kind of move the defense with his eyes, he can turn the ball over a lot because these guys are breaking on first reaction and they're unafraid. And so they make a ton of plays. They made a ton of plays, and it's reflected in their stat sheet, which we talked about. Offensively, Jordan Love is terrific. Like, he got hot last year. At the end of last year, he had a stretch of games from week 10 or 11 through the wild card round where he had 17 touchdowns and only 1 interception. He hasn't played at that sizzling level this year, but it's there because when you look at the tape, you see the talent just jump off the screen. This dude is super talented. He's a big-time player. He is someone that you really have to change your defense and keep him guessing and force him to make some errant throws. As a talented gunslinger, he will revert back to the guy that we saw at Utah State, where he'll try to fit the ball into some tight windows. The job of the Jaguars is to catch those errant throws. There was errant throws when they're available. We, the Jags, haven't enjoyed a lot of success turning the ball over. We have not got our hands on enough balls. We haven't disrupted the timing and rhythm of the offense like we said we did, or like we want to do. This would be a great week to kind of get to that. When we look at these perimeter receivers that the Packers have, it's not a coincidence that Jordan Love is playing and operating at a high level, because these playmakers they have on the perimeter, really, really good. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Wilkins. Christian Watson, rather. They have some really talented playmakers, some young guys in different pedigrees, meaning some guys are second round, third round, some guys are later rounds, but they still have a way to impact the game. So when I look at this game, this is the biggest test that the Jags have faced, and the Jaguars typically come back from London and kind of get it going. London kind of represents a bit of a training camp for the team. They're together. They're away from distractions. It's just the boys hanging out, getting together, being bonded, kind of building that chemistry and camaraderie that you need to play at a championship level. They need to come back and take all those lessons that they learned from an embarrassing loss to Chicago to a win over the Patriots. See if they can take those lessons, put it together, and put together an A-level performance against the Packers. Before I break it down and before I give you the keys to what the Jags need to do to make sure that this turns out in their favor, let's pay off one of our sponsors, and that is Cherry Bundy. This is a great performance recovery drink. It is 100% tart cherry juice. It gives you exactly what you want when you talk about the building up your immunity system, helping you recover, helping you release some of that soreness, all those things. Look, give me a comment. Just taking this. In fact, I think 66 of the 67 Power 4 conference teams use Cherry Bundy. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champs have this somewhere on their sideline to make sure that their players have everything that you need. So it kind of sounds like, to me, if you want to be a champ, if you want to compete at the highest level, Cherry Bundy needs to be a part of your routine. Make sure you check it out. Target, website, all those things. Cherry Bundy. You need to go and get it. Let's talk about the team, and let's talk about what this team needs to do to continue to play well, coming on the heels of a solid performance against the Patriots, heading into the Packers. Some of the things that stood out to me against the Patriots that are transferable. One, Tank Bigsby in the running game. Man, that has to be a focal point. Got to be able to run the football. Got to be able to play physical football. It appears that the Jaguars discovered their identity across the pond. They've talked about running the ball, being more physical, being committed to it, grinding it out a little bit, because there's so many benefits that comes in when they're a run-first team and a physical team. One of those is their ability to control the game. To me, Doug hasn't said this to me, but just in watching it, a bit of the Jaguars' approach when it comes to offense is methodically moving the ball down the field, keeping the ball away from the opponent, draining the clock a little bit so you limit the number of total snaps that your defense has to play, and you dictate the terms using your offense as a best defense. I think Doug has a realization that the defense is struggling a little bit at times, and sometimes you got to take matters into your own hands offensively, run the ball, set your team up, grind on them, lean on them a little bit. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to run 16 straight times like they did in London, but I do believe coming out, they feel good about the continuity and the chemistry of the offensive line. Walker Little played like an all-star in lieu of Cam Robinson. And so that'll be interesting to see how they play that going forward because huge difference in the running game, more pop when Walker Little is on the edges and on the run game. So let's see if they can kind of grind it out a little bit. Different O-line lineup. Last Friday, we had Joe Thomas on, and Joe Thomas was really waxing poetic about the offensive line. Talked about big physicality, thought they were capable of putting the team on the back if need be with their physicality, toughness at the line of scrimmage. People movers, guys that operated together. Cam Robinson goes out. Walker Little comes in and really does a good job controlling the side. Now, we haven't seen them against a pass-happy defense, but for one game, they really dominated. And part of the dominance is not only due to what they do at the point of attack, but who is running the ball, and that is Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby, 215-pounder, grinding it out. This dude is averaging over 6 yards per run. And when you're watching him at field level, the physicality, the toughness, the attitude that he plays with, I mean, rugged, violent, guy between the lines, but look, one of the nicest guys that you will meet away from it. And the thing that every team is looking for, what is your identity? When teams play you or they close their eyes and they envision that, hey, your team is coming to town, this is what it's going to be. For years, when I played in the league, we always used the Pittsburgh Steelers as a measuring stick. They were talking about, oh, here come the Steelers. Steelers are coming to town. Physicality, toughness, get your big boy pads on, get ready for it. The Jaguars are at a crossroads offensively where they need to establish whatever their offensive identity is going to be. If they're going to be a cute, throw it around the yard team, then they got to get cute and throw it around the yard. But if they're going to be a team that is built on toughness, physicality, dominating the offensive line and the defensive line, those guys have to show up, and they got to show up quickly because it's going to be important for those guys to be able to do it, to control it, to dominate it, to allow the Jaguars to get to the winning column. When I look at the running game is part of the identity phase when we talk about, like, hey, need them to run, need them to be physical, need them to control the line of scrimmage, have to have more violence in the fourth quarter so we can win it. Whether it's any combination of Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby and Dearness Johnson, they got to run the ball between the tackles. They got to be relentless and committed to doing it. The other thing that this offense has to have, and we've seen in recent weeks, man, the big play element is something that, like, when this team doesn't have it, it is hard for them to get going. I've likened it to watching the Golden State Warriors and Seth Curry, and he knocks down 1, 2, 3 3-pointers. All the energy changes. Well, being on sideline, field level, when Brian Thomas Jr. puts his hands on a deep ball, there is nothing like I've seen that erupts on the sideline from the Jack. I mean, they go crazy when he has an opportunity to make a big play because, look, as a young player, he's shown up and shown out every time he's had an opportunity. And so I wouldn't put it past him to have another series of, like, big plays, splash plays that kind of flip the game momentum. But this has to be more than just Brian Thomas Jr. making big plays down the field. The other guys have to get involved. And when I mean the other guys, I would say the co-headliners of the offense, Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. Christian Kirk is just a productive chain mover, just does all the dirty work, gets open, doesn't complain about his role, just does whatever is asked of him. He's going to get more opportunities this year and next year just because the way it's lining up. He's going to get more chances because people are going to start to take away Brian Thomas Jr. He's going to create huge voids over the middle of the field. So look for Kirk to be a big impact player on first downs in terms of, like, third and medium, third and long. Look for him to kind of get involved, do some of the dirty work over the middle. Evan Ingram, to me, he's the guy that is the controller, meaning he is the safety valve. He's the easy release. He is the swing and screen and all those things. Those all go to Evan Ingram. He does a great job at it because he's a mismatched nightmare at the tight end position. So you want to make sure that the opponent feels him in every way, crossing routes, bubbles, play action. You want to make sure that they have to take care of him because if you force them to take care of not only B2J, but Evan Ingram, and that creates more room for everybody else. And sometimes that everybody else is back to the running game with Tank Bigsby. Make opponents defend the perimeter, make them defend all your guys that are, I would say, impactful with the ball in his hands, with the ball in their hands, and then you can find a way to get it done. Last thing, offensively, we talk about screen game, screen bubbles, slow screens, all kinds of screens. Slow up the Green Bay Packers. They're doing all the zone stuff. They're coming after it. You want to settle the game down? Let's go to the screen game. Quick in, quick out. Don't be discouraged. Give you a couple different versions. Make them figure out how to get with it. But you have to be able to utilize the screen and bubble game, because as much as you want to stretch them, as much as we want the Jaguars to stretch them, stretch the opponent from inline to inline, you really can stress the defense operating sideline to sideline. And so you want to see a mix of that sideline to sideline, screens, some occasional shots to Brian Thomas Jr., and then a heavy reliance on the run game. To me, that's not that right kind of summarizes what the offense needs to do. We can take a break. We can pick up a sponsor. Then we talk about what the defense needs to get done. But before, let's talk about Melon. Our hat, Melon hats. This is my favorite hat. I showed you on the screen. Those who can watch me, it's in white. This is the Hydro Cool version. This is the one that I wear when it's hot and sunny out here in California. Well constructed, durable, no stains. You won't see any sweat stains or anything like that on the hats that you typically see. Melon doesn't do that. You can check it out on the website. Go to www.melon, MELIN. Great hats, great rack. Make sure you get on the hat. I'm really excited that this is one of the partners for the pod. Defensively, let's talk about defense. Let's talk about what's going on with the defense. There are a lot of people that are really having issue with Ryan Nielsen and Chris Richard and some of the other coaches in terms of how this defense is performing. Well, if you judge it by the yards, yeah, you can be disappointed. But if you judge it by, I would say, some of the things that are solid metrics, you can see that this defense is improving. You can see that they're doing a better job of keeping the ball in front. You can see that they are a team that is heavily in man-to-man coverage, but they can do it a few different ways to get into it. All of those things are, to me, are positive. And when you look at the progress of the defense over time, not yards, not stats, but just watching with your eyes, the defense is improving. And some of it we have to remember. New coaching staff take a while to learn the players. New player crew trying to figure out who does what well, like the camaraderie and all this other stuff like that you need to play great defense. Like all of this stuff has to happen. But unfortunately for the Jags, everybody's been hurt. So when you think about the best players being out of the lineup for so long, Boye Luakon, Dewey has been out the lineup. Tyson Campbell's been out the lineup. I mean, you're hanging on by a dear thread. But now everyone returns. And in returning, what they've done is they fortified the depth because they had to play guys in key spots early. So they gave them that experience. Now you can remove them from the equation, put them on the sideline. They can learn and observe, and maybe they become part of a package, which we've never had. First time I looked on defense and I saw us with a dime package in London against the New England Patriots. That means we had 6 DBs on the field. It might have been a 3-1, 3-2 front, but we had 6 defensive backs on the field able to match up and cover and those things. And the reason why it's important, because we start with the DBs, because to me, this game and a lot of these games come down to pass rush and coverage. We'll start with coverage first because coverage can dictate the pass rush. Can we cover them? If we can cover them, do we need to double? If we do double, who are we doubling with? How do we want to do it when emotions? Are we rock rolling and doing all those things? All that stuff has to be taken care of. It has to be communicated. They have to scrimmage it out, and they have to be ready to go on game day when it comes to that stuff. Too often I'm seeing guys getting caught in the middle of plays because they're looking around, not communicating the call. They have to get that part together because they can't give up any freebies because you don't have 11 on the field. You give up or blow a missed assignment, all those things. Communication is key. Organization is right there with that. From a physical standpoint, they got to determine, can they play man? Do they need to play zone? I think they're good enough to play man-to-man. I think you challenge them. You challenge them not only on the outside to win against man coverage, but you challenge the quarterback, the young quarterback, Jordan Love, to make tight window throws. And if he has to make too many tight window throws, it could be problematic. It could be problematic when it comes to what they want to do, Sean McVay, and how he wants to approach the game. One of the things that I am worried about, and I'll tell you this, I'm worried about it, and it's one of the things that I just don't know how we're going to resolve it. And so maybe it's just one of those things that never gets resolved, but let's talk about a little bit. So I'm worried about the matchups on the perimeter. I'm worried about the wide receivers and the tight ends on the Jaguars, corners and linebackers. The corners, I think you have enough to deal with 3, maybe 4. But when you start factoring in the tight ends, you now have to make decisions on how you're going to do it. Are you going to play with base? I'm going to tell you nope, because Chad Muma and Devin Lloyd, they can't run with these guys down the seam. So you don't want to play a whole lot of base against them in that regard. Can you play dime package, meaning 6 DBs on the field, little guys taking them on the ground game? Maybe it just depends on how it goes. But I do know this: the return of Dewey, the return of Darnell Savage, like this now gives the team options on how you're going to match up and play over the course of the week. Are you going to play outside and inside and match up man to man? Or are you just going to cover whoever goes 1, 2, and 3, meaning counting from outside in? Outermost guys 1, inside guys 2, innermost guys 3, other side is 1 and 2. However you do it, that's how you match up. With the Jags, you just want to, can they match up? Can they hold up in man-to-man coverage? Nobody. I mean, it's rare to find someone who plays as much man-to-man coverage as the Jags, but they're crushing it. They're killing it. They're understanding the escape hatches and how you get out of certain situations. So it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to track it. It's fun to see how they're doing. Up front, let's talk about this because, look, this is going to be the battle of the trenches. And had a lot of defensive tackles. Bush slowly but surely kind of selling those things off and getting back draft capital and some of those things. I would say that defensively, got to own the line of scrimmage. This is a big test because they run inside, outside zone. They're going to run it in succession. They're going to stay on it. They're going to be physical in it. They believe in it. They look, you can't get them to relent on the standard when it comes to the physicality and toughness that's needed to play against that. For the Jags, it's all at the line of scrimmage. And so all of those defensive tackles that hung around, that still been available. We got to see if those guys can rock and roll because it's going to be a very physical game. It's going to be one where we can talk about Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen getting to the quarterback, but they're going to have to get to the quarterback after securing the run. It's a difference, but it's much needed if this team is going to get off the mat. Final thing, let's talk about special teams. Rich Bisaccia is special teams coach for the Green Bay Packers. He did a great job wherever he's been, but he did a great job most recently with Range 4 coming over. Like, this is a dude who just gets it at a high level. He's going to challenge them. He's going to push and prod and try and get them to play a little nastier with a little more grit, a little more determination so they can get used to it because it is one of the things that can prevent us from being the team that we want to be is losing the physicality at the line of scrimmage or not having enough bodies where we can control the line of scrimmage. It's interesting. We got a couple weeks for the trade deadline, but it's one of the things that I'm worried about. Can we control the trenches and can we match up with the Packers wideouts? If we check off the boxes on both of those, Jaguars win a tough one in the bank. If we only get one, it's going to be tight. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter, and we got to see if we can make a play. So that's the podcast for today. That's a little preview of what is to come week 8. Green Bay Packers versus Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags got to be on their game. They got to make it happen. Got to make it pop. Looking for them to be able to do it. Until next week, make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Check out all the cool things that we got on the Believe Network, Fubo, YouTube, wherever it is, wherever you can find Believe. Check out my colleagues. They're doing fantastic work contributing, talking about their favorite squads. Make sure you check us out. Until next week, I think we go Monday. Until next Monday, I'm Bucky Brooks, and I'm out.